Welcome back to another episode of Overshot Podcast. Thank y'all for joining us and thank y'all for listening. I appreciate everybody that has been listening and tuning in. I appreciate all the feedback we have been getting, man. I love it, man. I appreciate everything that we have been receiving from y'all. We are on our sixth episode of my NFL preview, man. My sixth episode, and the team we're working on today is going to be the AFC West, man. The AFC West. Last division we did was the AFC East. The Belichick, the revenge tour. Bill Belichick, man. But this time we're working on the AFC West, man. And this time we're working with the AFC West. It's going to be Patrick Mahomes show and the Justin Herbert show and everything in between, man, with that conference and what's going on with the Broncos and the Las Vegas Raiders as well. I'm being joined by no other, man, a recurring guest, no other than Scott Maggio, man. Scott Walker, man, is glad to have you back on here, man. How you feeling today?
We're doing good. I'm glad to be back on the podcast. And excited to talk about something different than the NFC South.
Yeah,
a different conference and see what we got here with an interesting conference with some teams that are looking to improve, and then you got the team like Kansas City who's looking to see if they can go back to the Super Bowl for a third straight time. So very interested to see what you have to say about it, and see how we compare and contrast.
So, like all the episodes before, we're going to start from the bottom and go to the top. The team that I have at the bottom of this division is going to be the Denver Broncos. I actually don't have them finishing with a really horrible record. So some people may be surprised based on the talent they do have, because they do have a boatload of talent on their team. I mean, Pro Football Focus have them ranked as the 10th best roster in the whole NFL. So that shows you that they have based on Pro Football Focus, they have a top 10 roster in the NFL. So people may be surprised why I have them finishing 7-10 and outside of playoffs, and not even just outside of playoffs, just outside the 500 record period. So that may be a bit surprising. So I just want to break it down. The main thing, but let's talk about everything else before, and we'll get into that, and we'll just go back and forth. Let's talk about the moves they made this offseason. So, of course, they drafted Patrick Surtain in the first round. I was kind of surprised. I honestly was surprised. Justin Jefferson was sitting there. Justin Fields was sitting there, ready to be drafted, ready to go to Denver, and they kind of moved on from him. I'm not sure if they did that because they thought they had a good chance to get Aaron Rodgers. They wanted to recreate Peyton Manning 2.0 when they brought him over from Indianapolis Colts. I'm not sure what made them do that, but I just thought that even though they traded for Teddy and they got Drew Lock, Justin Fields is right there to take a quarterback of the future. And I don't think either one of those two quarterbacks of the future. I try to make Drew Lock the guy he proved not to be the guy so far. I'm not saying he can't be, but just to talk about other moves they made, Von Miller is coming back after a season-ending injury last season, so that's a big acquisition to come back. They're going to be another, in my opinion, it's another year without a franchise quarterback. That's a big thing for me. They don't have a franchise quarterback. They got Teddy Bridgewater, and they got a dancing Drew Lock, man. He dances every time he do anything. Yeah, he's a dancer. And they got Vic Fangio. He's going into his third season. His first season there, he went 7-9 in 2019. Second season, last season, he went 5-11. And now he's coming up with his third season. I think he may finish again below 500. And it sucks because if he does finish below 500 again, it may end up being his last season in Denver. But you can't put all the blame on him because as great and as a Hall of Fame quarterback as he is, John Elway has had a hard time finding that heir apparent franchise quarterback to lead that team to the promised land. So as much as you want to blame the coaches that he's been bringing in and everybody that he has, he just can't find a quarterback. He did bring in Peyton for that 1 year, but outside of that, he just hadn't had any luck with finding a good quarterback to be that franchise leader. Draft him one at least. People thought Brock was gonna be that guy. Brock left to go get the money from Houston, and I know all about that deal. I hated it. Oh man, Brock. I don't even want to talk about Brock either. But yeah, man, he thought Brock was gonna be the guy. He brought in some other quarterbacks. Now he's putting his money on Drew Lock and Teddy B. In my opinion, I thought Justin Fields would have been the guy.
Just to talk about their wide receiver duo, I feel like they have two of the better duos in the NFL with Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy.
Jerry Jeudy was expected to be the number one wide receiver taken out of last year's draft. Justin Jefferson came on the scene and kind of surprised everybody and became the number one receiver out of the last year's draft. And that last year's draft was supposed to be one of the deepest wide receiver draft classes of all time. And it had a lot of good wide receivers, and a lot of them still have a lot to prove. So it's not over yet. But right now, Justin is looking like the number one guy out of that draft class. We're going to see what Jeudy does. They say he's the most polished one out of all of them as far as footwork and everything else he can do on the field. But we'll see what he does with another quarterback. Kirk Cousins is not the most elite quarterback, so I don't really want to say just because Justin got Kirk is the reason he was better. He was overall a better wide receiver last season. But I'm not going to talk about too much because I just want to hear what Scott got to say about me having them right there. Do you disagree with it, or do you think that's about right where they should be?
I think it's about right. You're going to look at a Denver team that they're going to be in position to win a lot of games. I'm going to see if I can pull this up real quick. According to ESPN, they have they play 8 of the bottom 10 FPI, which is one of those rankings that the ESPN has. They play 8 of the 10 worst teams according to ESPN, really. They play at the Giants, at the Jaguars, versus the Jets, versus the Eagles, versus the Lions, versus the Bengals, and they have a home and home with the Raiders. They are setting themselves up with a good schedule. You just have to look at the start. They have the Giants, the Jaguars, the Jets. We talked about the other teams that they're going to be playing. So they're in a position to win games. It just all depends on how the rest of the team is playing. We look at, first of all, we start off with the quarterback position. This is honestly a make or break year, I think, for the Denver franchise as a whole. Vic Fangio's on the hot seat. Like you said, first 2 years have not been up to par. A lot of people, if you probably look at, sports betting websites, they're probably going to say Vic Fangio is probably at the top of the list, with the odds on favorite being the first coach fired in the NFL this coming up year. They have such a great chance to start the season out well. And it's going to be very interesting to see what they do, especially at the quarterback position. So we start with Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater battling it out in the quarterback position. I like Drew Lock. I like the way that he goes out. He's fiery, like you called him, Dancing Drew. He's going to go out. He's going to air it. He's going to throw picks. It's going to be interesting to see because they have, I think, a decent receiving core. I'm interested to see what Drew does if he gets to start, how he's able to handle that position. At one point, I think a lot of people, this was before Joe Burrow really blew onto the scene, a lot of people talked about Drew Lock potentially being that number 1 pick at the time. And, his season didn't pan out the way that people thought, and he fell to the second round, I think. So I'm interested to see with Drew. And then you get a guy like Teddy Bridgewater who comes in, he's very smart in the quarterback position where he's not going to just chunk it deep. He's probably hardly ever going to do it, maybe once or twice a game. He's going to, nickel and dime you, and you're going to have to expect the defense to win games for you. And Denver's not a team to have that defense win games for them. I think Drew's probably going to be the starter. I think Denver's really kind of just one to ride with him. And so I'm interested to see how he does going into this season. At the running back position, it's going to be another thing that's going to be up for grabs is Melvin Gordon. It should be this, what people would think would be the starter just because of how great he used to be. But last year he fell off. And they bring in a guy like Javonte Williams, who comes in as a second rounder out of North Carolina. Tar Heels team that's on the rise with Mac Brown as the head coach. Javonte, was pretty good last year and is drafted in the second round. I think if you're drafted within the first 2 rounds, you're expected to come in and at least have some sort of an impact. So I think, and if you look at fantasy ranking, Javonte Williams is up there, with the second stringers, is probably the top second stringer that'll be drafted fantasy wise. So I'm interested to see if he gets a chance to start or if they split carries or what's going to happen in that position. Then you go to the wide receiver position with Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, and Tim Patrick, are they going to be there? Cortland Sutton's coming back from injury. I'm interested to see what he's going to be doing, if he's going to be able to, start the season playing or if he's going to have to take, a sideline. This is a big year for Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy needs to really have a big year. I think it depends on the quarterback play as well, but I've heard a lot of people are are putting money on Jerry Jeudy to, really kind of have a breakout year with that Denver team and the Denver schedule that they have. Especially, and then you also look at Noah Fant. Noah Fant led the team with receptions last year. He didn't really have that many touchdowns. I think he only had 3 touchdowns on the season, but Drew Lock went to him a lot. And if they go to Noah Fant more, especially in the red zone, you could look at him having a breakout season in that tight end position and break into the top 5. And he's really right there anyway to begin with. So I'm really interested to see that portion of the offensive line, especially, with Lloyd Cushenberry there at center. How is their offensive line going to be able to handle, a quarterback who's not very experienced, I guess you could say, who's not, your team is not as confident going back there as, a top quarterback. And then defensively, how is Von Miller going to respond coming back off being injured? You talked about Patrick Surtain Jr. coming in. Was kind of a shocking pick, but not really. I mean, a lot of people thought he was going to go, top 10, top 15. I didn't really think Denver was going to go with him, but they really need help back there. Kyle Fuller was somebody that used to be really solid, and I think he's kind of fell off a little bit. He's going to need to, kind of pick it up this year because I think they're going to really battle it out back there. And then somebody else that a lot of people are not really thinking about is Justin Simmons. We look at last year, just the Broncos as a whole had 10 interceptions on the whole year, and Justin Simmons had 5 of them. So I thought Justin Simmons had a heck of a year. He had 96 total tackles, no sacks, but, looking at a safety, you're not going to get, that many. So I'm really excited to see what Justin Simmons does in his second year back. Denver's going to be an interesting team. And it's like I said, it's one of those teams where they really have to pick it up and they gotta come out the gates hot. And I think, with Ronald Darby back there as well, Bradley Chubb, it's a team that's going to have to really come out playing hot. And I'm interested to see what they do on the season. This division's tough, but their schedule is not that hard. They really have to steal some games. And especially you get, all those, easy teams, according to ESPN. And then you get the NFC East, which is, Washington, the Cowboys, the Eagles. It's, you're going to play the Lions and all that. It's a year. It's a make or break year for Denver. I could, see them doing well, maybe being 500, saving some jobs, or really just falling off and only having about 4 wins. And, you're back in the top 10, top 5 picking. And heck, at this point, you're gone from Drew Lock, you're gone from Teddy Bridgewater, and you're picking a quarterback and you're starting over.
In your opinion, do you feel like they should have went with Justin, or you think like going with Patrick was the right decision?
I haven't really been, on the Justin Fields hype train. I see that he was very disappointed. If you've seen photos and everything, or he just seems that way, is the way he's perceiving it. He really seemed disappointed going to Chicago. So maybe he wanted to go to Denver. To me, Denver just isn't appealing as a quarterback. I mean, like you talked about, Peyton Manning, they brought in Peyton, and Peyton, won a Super Bowl and went to a Super Bowl and lost. But outside of Peyton Manning, I mean, you can argue Tim Tebow has probably been the best quarterback they've had in a long time. And he just won 1 playoff game and was really, he wasn't really anything special. And you see, Tim coming back as a tight end. I mean, he's not a quarterback. So it's not somewhere I'm just very excited to go. You're going to get into a division really that's, quarterback based with Mahomes. And then you have Justin Herbert. And if you can throw Derek Carr in the mix if you want, you're getting to a good divisional conference good division with good quarterbacks. But to me, at the end of the day, Denver just isn't a quarterback home to me. I wouldn't want to go there, but I like Patrick Surtain, that pick. I think he's going to be very successful. Quarterbacks usually tend to be successful, especially from a quarterback perspective. And back to Justin Fields, he's an Ohio State guy. And if you really look at a lot of the quarterbacks, they're not from these huge powerhouses. So I'm interested to see how he handles being in Chicago. And man, they have a tough schedule too. So I like the Patrick Surtain pick, but you could have gone anywhere with that pick, especially early on.
I feel that. I understand that. So So we pretty much in agreements there. Like you said, they got a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. And I didn't even bring up Melvin Gordon, Cortland Santane, Noah Fant. I didn't even bring up him as far as one of the better tight ends. And the tight end was not saying he's only up there because he's not a good tight end, but the tight end position as a whole is just not that deep if you look at a whole. But he's one of the better tight ends, so you can't give that to him. And like I said, Cal Fuller, Kareem Jackson. I mean, Kareem Jackson used to play for my Texans back in the day, so I'm very familiar with him. But as a whole, we're gonna see how they do. It's a make or break year in my opinion for Coach Vic, going into his third season with back-to-back losing seasons. But like I said, you can't put it all on him when you got John Elway missing on the quarterback position so often. So we're gonna see where they go from here. We definitely gonna see. I was one big thing I was surprised that they did bring back Von Miller. I was for sure that he was gonna be either released and they were just gonna let somebody else pick him up at this offseason. But to kind of pick up that year of his contract and bring him back was kind of surprising to me. But we'll see where it goes from here. So just going to the next team. So the next team after this may surprise a few because I know a lot. This team is everybody's sexy pick to make the playoffs and make a deep run, and their quarterback is that new big guy. And it's like, how can I have these teams so low? But it can go either way. And with the Colts kind of having this kind of tailing off with their quarterback situation and Quentin Nelson going down and everything, that may be one of my have falling out and adding this team in. But right now, I'm gonna keep them where I have them, and that's the Los Angeles Chargers. So I have them going 9-8. May surprise some people. I know a lot of people just say sexy pick to make it to the playoffs and not make a deep run, but kind of be in condition to make a run for the Super Bowl. And let's look at their roster. Pro Football Focus don't have their roster ranked that high. Honestly, they have some elite talent, but as a whole, their roster is not that deep. Pro Football Focus has their roster ranked number 20th overall in the NFL. So, like I said, that's not like a blow your away roster. It's not like a roster that's going to be like, wow, they have so much talent. But it's a roster that definitely has some elite talent at some positions that you need some talent at. And just to talk about those positions, Joey Bosa, one of the best defensive linemen in the whole NFL, man. He's definitely up there as a top 10 defensive lineman. I mean, edge rusher, to put him up there. I mean, edge rusher, if you think about it, you got Myles Garrett, you got his brother Nick, you got Von Miller stuff there. Depending on how you feel about him, Khalil Mack. So Joey's definitely up there. JJ, depending on how you feel about JJ, but Joey's definitely up there. And I can't take anything away from him. Derwin James just read up and got a contract, I believe so. Wasn't Darren was the one that recently got a contract, right?
Yes, he did.
Okay, yeah. So I'll look that up. But they got him. Both of them players on the defensive side. Joey, we know he just got a contract. He got 5 years, $135 million. So highest paid lineman in the NFL. So he definitely getting paid for his talent. But let's look at the reason why, and we can talk about it. The reason why everybody feel like this team is going to be that team is because the guy they got on the quarterback, under center. It's the guy named Justin Herbert. Had a good year, amazing year for a rookie quarterback to come in to do what he did. You can't. It's like he did his best that he could, and he got like all you needed him was to get was a C+, and he came out and got an A+ for the season. Let's just talk about some of the stats he had: 31 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, a 69 QB yard, and 4,336 yards. Amazing. And he didn't even play all games all season, so that goes in also. He didn't play all 16 games. I mean, he only missed one, but the game that he came in for, he wasn't expected to play. I mean, Tyron Taylor got punctured by the training staff, took him out the game, hit him in the chest and hit his lung, so he couldn't play. So they was like, Justin, you up? He was like, and that wasn't like a day before or a couple hours. That was like right before the game started. That happened, like as they was warming up. So he kind of got through out there, and from that point on, he never gave that starting position back up. He went out for the rest of the season, and he balled out. Like he just balled out for the rest of the season. He had some shootouts with Kansas City. He had shootouts with Denver. He had shootouts with any your top quarterbacks that you think there's out there. He had a shootout with what's his name? Tom Brady, Drew Brees, anybody, everybody that's out there. He went out there and he did his thing, and he held his own. So he is one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. I'm not ready to put him up there. I know a lot of people high on him, but I'm just not ready to put him up there with some of the best. Like if I think about quarterbacks in the NFL, I'm still putting, like, of course, Aaron Payton, Aaron Payton, Tom, Russell, Deshaun, Lamar. I'm still putting those guys ahead of him right now. So he's in that like 10 to 15 range for me. He can easily make that jump into the top 5 if he continues to play how he plays. But I just want to see it for another year. He didn't give me that shock value that Patrick Mahomes gave me when I first seen Patrick. When I first see Patrick, I was just like, oh yeah, he's that man. He's like, I don't even need to see anything else. He's that guy. And not trying to compare him to Patrick, but Patrick did go for like 50 touchdowns and win the MVP his first year starting. But like we said, Justin was in his rookie season. Patrick got to sit on the bench for a year, got to learn how Alex got to sit on the Andy Reid system, and Justin got to play with a coach that's not even his coach anymore. Speaking about his coach, he got a first-time head coach named Brandon Stanley. He was the former defensive coordinator for the Rams. This is going to be his first time being a head coach in his career, like not even college, or no pro level. He was ever a head coach. So this is going to be a first time head coach. We're going to see how he does. But overall, I got them going 9-8. And like I said, with the Colts going down with their injuries with Wentz and Quentin Nelson, I can kind of shift them going more 10-7 in that range right now. But right now I got them going right there, and they just a game behind the next team I got. So it's not like a big jump, so they can easily go flip and flop. But I'm not trying to hedge my bet. I'm gonna stand on what I stand on, and I'm gonna say I got them going 9-8, and I would take all slander from their fans. But Scott, what do you think about the Chargers, man?
I think you laid it out pretty perfectly. I think a lot of people are seeing this kind of as a good sleeper pick to do big things this year. When you look at the roster, I mean, and we'll go over it in a second. I mean, it's honestly, especially from the offensive position, it's very stacked from the standpoint of Justin Herbert at quarterback, Austin Eckler at running back, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams at wide receiver, Jared Cook at tight end. Like, if you told me I had that roster, I'd be like, all right, I mean, we should win a lot of games. And I think the thing is I think a lot of people really are still showing that this team is so young. Like ESPN has them as the third best team that's under 25. They got a lot of, young guys that come in, a lot of rookies, a lot of second, third year players. And so I think that they're still young. And if you told, Los Angeles a couple of years ago that, in Justin Herbert's second year, they'd be 9-8, is your prediction, I think a lot of people would be happy. 9-8 is not I think it's honestly a really good prediction just because you're not giving them the high hopes that some people are really striving for. But I think you're putting a realistic sense of this still is Justin Herbert's second year. They're going to have to play some tough teams. You still got to play Mahomes twice, which I honestly think they can steal a game against. But I think a good thing about Justin Herbert is Los Angeles, with it being having two teams, the Chargers are in a sense like the Clippers, or the Jets or the New York Mets. Like they're that second team. The Rams are, the Lakers. They're the Yankees. And if you look at, and during grad school, we had to do like a little project on the new stadium and everything. And the Rams tickets are so much more expensive than the Chargers tickets. And that's because, you look at all the previous games and the Chargers have, there's more away fans than there are Chargers fans at games. So Justin Herbert didn't have that pressure that I felt like being in a big city can put on players. Is that pressure going to come this year? I don't know yet. I feel like, especially with Matt Stafford coming in, people are still going to be looking at the Rams and saying, oh, this is their year, whenever the Chargers could, being sneaky and, steal some wins and, like you said, sneak into the playoffs. Los Angeles has a really good chance of being pretty good this year and making some good strides to next year. If they make the playoffs this year, I think that's like making the AFC Championship for them. I think it's a huge deal, especially with how young these guys are. So we'll go with, Justin Herbert. He's going to be a guy. Can he sneak into the top 10 this year as a quarterback? I think he's got a good chance at it. He's very mature for that position and makes a lot of smart decisions. Like you said, 31 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Does he build on that? I mean, 31 touchdowns in your first year is pretty impressive. I think he could get up to about 35. I'm interested to see what he does from interception standpoint. Austin Eckler as a starting running back, but then you got Justin Jackson and Joshua Kelly are right there in second and third strings, who are going to steal some carries and some wide receiver dump passes from Eckler in that sense. But I think it's a good thing, especially in a 17-game season, is you're not going to have to work Eckler as hard as you're going to have to work an Alvin Kamara or, some of those top guys, McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, some of those guys. You're not going to have to work Eckler as much. And so if they do make the playoffs, you're looking at a more than fresh Austin Eckler compared to, those top other running back positions, which could help them going into the long run. And then you get, Keenan Allen, who's I think needs to have another breakout year. I think he's, people kind of consider him. They have, such that main group of like 7 wide receivers, but Keenan Allen kind of gets left out of that group. And I think he needs to get into this group, especially with what Justin Herbert did last year. He can really come on and do something well. Mike Williams, he's got to have a little bit better of a season. I think he's so iffy. It can go either way. He can have a really good season, really bad season, right in the middle. I don't know what he's going to have. I think Justin Herbert's really going to spread it out to him a little bit more and get him involved. And then you have Jared Cook, who's coming in from New Orleans. I was never a fan of Jared Cook when he came in, but
I know you. So I was just about to say, I know you're not missing him.
I'm not missing Jared Cook, to be honest. But watching a lot of stuff on different podcasts and ESPN, everything like that, a lot of people are high on Jared Cook coming in to this Chargers offense. Like I said, I'm okay with him being gone, but I think if Justin Herbert can go to him in the goal line, he's a big body you can throw down there. He could do well in that situation. They bring in Rashawn Slater, which was their first round pick this past year for left tackle. The offensive line really needs to get a little bit better, especially if they want to protect Herbert. And then you go look at the defense. The defense is something that's really going to have to step up this year. Derwin James, like we talked about, is going to be somebody that has to have a big year. I think a lot of people had a lot of hype for him, and then he gets hurt, and he's so iffy. And so him not playing last year is something that really hurt the Chargers. And then you get Joey Bosa, and then one other person that I'm really looking at this year will be Kenneth Murray Jr. How is he going to play this year at that left inside linebacker position? I think the Chargers can be a 9-10 and potentially even an 11-win team. They have, the offense especially for it. A team that can. It's really a wild card offense. If I imagine like a wild card team, and somebody said, would this team, win a division or be a wild card or not make the playoffs, I would look at that team and say they're probably a wild card. There's probably going to be better talent than them, but they have a team that can go in there, maybe shock a team in the playoffs, but I don't think they're going to reach these big heights. If you want a sleeper MVP pick for a betting standpoint, I would go with Justin Herbert if you like somebody with big odds and don't care throwing your money around. I would like Justin Herbert. Jalen Hurts is another one I really like. But I'm interested to see how the Chargers do. I think, and we're going to talk about the Raiders next, but I think the Chargers are actually ahead of the Raiders in the divisional standpoint. I think they finished second in the division ahead of the Raiders. I'm not high on the Raiders, and we'll talk about that in a second. I like the Chargers better. They're still young. So if this isn't the team, there's not really high expectations. It's almost a sleeper. It's really a sleeper pick. But if this team, goes in and does good things and, shocks some teams, if they beat the Chiefs, if they beat the Cowboys, if they go in and beat the Steelers and, there's some games that are very winnable in their schedule. It wouldn't shock me if the Chargers made the playoffs.
Yeah, same. I'm at the same with you as far as them making the playoffs. It wouldn't shock me either. That's why I say I have them where I do as far as 9-8. Like I said, I can easily see them getting that 10 win with the coach going down. I can see them kind of fitting in under that spot where the coach. Where I would have the coach at seeing that they're dealing with a lot of injuries. Because overall, I feel like the coach have a better roster and a better team than the Chargers. But them dealing with the Wentz injury, them dealing with the Quentin Nelson injury, gonna take a toll on them, and I feel like that's gonna have them fall back. And I feel like the Chargers is that next team that can fit in right there with them falling back. So I can see them going sneaking into the playoffs as well. And just to add on to your point about Mike Williams, he's one of those wide receivers that every year people say that this is going to be his year, and it's like he kind of underperforms. He this past season he went for 48 receptions and 756 yards, only 5 touchdowns. And ever since his second year in the NFL, when he went for 10 touchdowns, ever since then, they just thought that next year is going to be his year. After that 10 touchdown year, he only had 2 touchdowns. He did go for 1,000 yards and 90 receptions, but it just wasn't that as far as getting the ball in the end zone, he just wasn't there. In this past season, it's kind of the same thing. His yards went down, his touchdowns only went up by 3. So it's like they always expect him going to have that breakout season and be that go-to wide receiver, and he just yet to have that. And yeah, I know you would say he just needs a decent quarterback, but Keenan Allen puts up numbers with whoever you put him behind center with. He puts up numbers with anybody, and he's one of the better wide receivers in the NFL. And Derwin James Jr. did not get a contract. I have confused him with another player. But he is an elite talent because he got drafted and came into the NFL and became a second team All-Pro player and a Pro Bowl player his first season as a rookie. And after that, he got injured his second season. Like Scott was saying, he dealt with a lot of injuries, and he missed all of last season dealing with an injury. So he had back-to-back years where he just can't stay healthy. But his rookie season, you would have thought that he's going to be one of those elite defensive players for a long time to come, but he just can't seem to fight that injury bug off. So hopefully he can this upcoming season, because he is an elite talent, and we want to see him on the field. That's just based on his talent alone. We want to see him on the field, and he was another player. And I always bring it up about that 2018 draft. There's one of those players from that draft class that is now it's time for them to get paid, because that draft class was just so deep. And we're gonna see how they do when they come, because a lot of them begin paid. Like a couple of them got paid already. So it's still a lot more out there from their draft class that need to get paid. And Darren James Jr. is one of those guys. They may pick up his 5th year and go wait till next season to see if he can stay healthy before they decide to just pay him any kind of big money, seeing that he's dealing with all these injuries. But I feel like we're on the same page about them. We're gonna see how they do though going into next season and just go from there. But the next team is gonna be the Raiders. So we just talked about it. It's gonna be the Raiders, man. So I have them going 10-7. I know you're not high on the Raiders, but I feel like this finally, I know it's been a long time coming, but it finally may be Coach Gruden's year to get into the playoffs. So I feel like, and I know people don't want to talk about it as much, but Gruden is kind of on the hot seat. Coach John Gruden is kind of on the hot seat. So they brought him in, they gave him the 10-year contract, they gave him all that money. So he came in, he supposed to be the savior. He left ESPN as that guy, having his quarterback camp. They got him out the booth, they got him back on the field. He was that it guy. Think about it for all the people that didn't watch John Gruden, and I'm not saying like I'm some old man. I just know because I just researched history. But think about John Gruden as Sean McVay for all the people that's watching. So imagine Sean McVay would have won that Super Bowl he made it to. Imagine him when he won that Super Bowl, went to coach like 2 or 3 more years, then just stopped coaching. John Gruden used to be that it guy. He was that young, hot coach coming in. And he was there, came in and coached with the Bucks and won a Super Bowl, even though that was people say that was Coach Dungy's team, but he came in and everybody was saying how he was this and how he was that. He left and he went he went back. Now he's back. He went to be a broadcaster, have his quarterback camp, and he was there. He was just awesome on TV. And now he's back with the Las Vegas Raiders, and he's going to be their coach. And he signed a 10-year, like I said, 10-year contract, $100 million. And he just hasn't lived up to the hype so far. we're just gonna say that he hasn't lived up to the hype so far. They played in Oakland his first 2 years, and now they had their first year in Vegas. One thing I want to talk about, Scott, and it's completely off topic, but not the Oakland, but the Las Vegas Raiders tickets are ridiculously high. They are so high. Like I was looking at and this is just random, but it popped in my head because I remember I was looking at their tickets when I was going through their preview, and their home games, let me just look at it real fast. I wrote it down. They got a game week 3 against Miami. The lowest ticket is $430. Miami not no big team like that. Let's think about the worst team they could possibly play. The Cincinnati Bengals. The lowest ticket is $340.
And honestly, I don't think people are really coming to see the Raiders. I think they're really just coming to see the stadium. And once the hype of that kind of wears off, and I mean, it's going to be a little while, but people are just coming there to see the stadium. I don't think they're coming to see the Raiders. And if they're coming to see the Raiders, they're coming to see John Gruden. And so that's the only two things that they're coming to see.
When I seen that, I just couldn't believe. I'm thinking the Cowboys, the Giants, the Patriots, the Bucks, they don't even scratch that number. And I was thinking what the hell is going on in Las Vegas? Yeah. So back on the team, like I said, this is going to be they're going into their second season in Las Vegas. Last season was their first. They went 8-8 last season. John Gruden first year, he went 4-12. The season after that, he went 7-9, and now he's 8-8. He's improving every year. So that's really why I'm got him at the 10-7 mark, because it seems like he gradually is improving every year. And I feel like he's finally gonna make that leap to be that above 500 team and kind of inch towards the playoffs and be a potential playoff team. The biggest thing that I have a problem with, I can see him changing the culture of the Raiders and trying to get them back into a winning situation. But the biggest thing for me is the defense. He has his problem with Derek Carr, whatever. It's not like he doesn't like Derek Carr or he want to get rid of Derek Carr. They just seem like they have a fractured relationship, because every offseason, Derek Carr's name is in the trade rumors. Derek Carr getting his feelings. He get to talking stuff on Twitter. He get to talking stuff to reporters because he can't understand why his name is in trade rumors. But the person he needs to talk to is his coach and his GM about why his name is in trade rumors. But every year his name is in trade rumors, and people tend to keep blaming Derek Carr for how that team is performing. But if you really just look at it, their defense hasn't been performing the way they should. And I think it boils down to the draft decisions they made since John Gruden has been there. So they took Farrell at 4th overall, and when they took him, even when the people that was commentating, they was just like, "You took him? What about him? What about him? What about him?" And the players they could have took, Devin White, who went right after him, the linebacker for the Bucks, and coming out of college, he was perceived to be one of those guys. So they took him over Devin White. They took him over Josh Allen, the defensive lineman and linebacker for the Jacksonville Jaguars, who has already proven to be a Pro Bowler. He's one of those good guys. They did good Josh Jacobs late in the first round. I give him that, because Josh Jacobs has proven to be a really good running back for them so far. He probably can step into that elite status this upcoming year because he's having a good year. So let's move past that year. So the year after that, that was 2020. So these are all Coach John Gruden's decisions. So in 2020, they took Henry Ruggs as the first wide receiver off the board, completely. First wide receiver off the board. And a lot of people were confused because they thought the guy we were just talking about, Jerry Jeudy, was one of the best wide receivers in the whole draft class. That's who they thought he would have went with. But instead of going with Jerry and Justin Jefferson, who was also in that same class, he went with Henry Ruggs. And a lot of people were surprised about that. So they were like, why would you take Ruggs when you could have took the best wide receiver in the draft class, which was Jeudy? And if you didn't want Jeudy, you could have easily got Justin if you just wanted a wide receiver. Cool, we moved past that. Now we coming into this year. Like I said, they went 8-8, so they had a pretty good record. They took a lineman, Alex Leatherwood, and they took him.
Surprise pick as well.
That was a surprise pick as well. So they took him number 17. And again, when they took him, the people that were commentating were just like, what? So we're going to see if that pick pans out, because we don't know if he's going to be that guy or not. But it's just like the picks he's making in the draft. It got people scratching their head, because in two players I didn't mention, In 2019, he could have took Ed Oliver that ended up playing for the Buffalo Bills. In 2020, if he just won the wide receiver, he could have took CeeDee Lamb, was another good wide receiver in that draft. Because CeeDee, Justin, and here Jared was the top 3 in that draft. Instead of taking those 3, he took Henry. Nothing against Henry. I just feel like those 3 guys were clearly better than him. So it's just like the decision he's making when it comes to the draft is not the best ones. And I just wonder, what is he doing? Jonathan Albert was one of the guys he took, and he's ranked the lowest ranked safety in the NFL based on possessions that he played. So it's like the draft picks he's making is not kind of panning out. I'm not sure if he just feel like he just won't come. I remember when he was making those picks, people in the draft rooms were saying he's taking guys that are culture guys that are coming from winning organizations, guys that can come into our organization and not perform the best on the field, but give us a good coach in the locker room. And I understand that, but sometimes you just want that guy that could be a difference maker regardless of what he can do off the field. You just want somebody to be a different maker on the field. And I just feel like, not saying you just want some guy in your locker room that's going to be a knucklehead and cause problem all the time, but you just want somebody that can be like, at the end of the day, you know he gonna win his one-on-one assignment no matter what, and you just want that kind of guy. And Pro Football Focus have the roster ranked 26. So people may sit back and be like, "You just said all that, and you got to win in 10 games? How?" And I say it again, I just feel like they're gradually getting better from the moment John Gruden got there to now. And this is my only surprise pick team. So I'm really picking with, out of all the teams I rank up to this point, as far as NFC East, NFC, and AFC, AFC conference and the NFC conference. This is the only team I'm picking with my heart, and I'm not picking with my head. And my heart is just, my gut is just telling me that this is going to be the year that they can get the 10 wins and they go prove that John Gruden is the guy. But I feel like if he doesn't, this may be, he may start to get on the hot seat, and the management of that team and over the organization is going to start looking at him to thinking like, did they make the right decision by giving him $10 million over $100 million over 10 years? Just Scott, I know I said a lot, but I just want to see what you think about that overall.
Well, I'm gonna pick with my head and not with my heart on this one. I'm, you basically laid out a reason why Las Vegas is not going to be that good this year. I mean, it's just one of those teams where I just don't feel confident in everything they do. I mean, look at the schedule, first of all. I mean, you start the season with at home versus the Ravens. Then you go to the Steelers, Dolphins, and you got Chargers, Bears, Broncos, Eagles, Giants, Chiefs, Bengals, Cowboys, Washington football team, Chiefs, Browns, Broncos, Colts, and Chargers. I mean, like, I look at the schedule and I mean, like, they're not going to go 0-17, but like, you can make a case for probably the other team on almost every single one of these games. I mean, you go like the Giants, for instance, you're in New York, middle of the season. You know, the Raiders start the season out hot. I mean, last year they were 6-3, and then they were 7-5, and then they only finished 8-8. And so it's like, a lot of people always get hype about them, and then it comes towards the middle to the end of the season and they fall off. It's really, I don't really know who the problem is. I mean, I think you laid out how the draft class has gone, and it's like the first pick, they don't know what they're going to do. And then the second pick, it's like, oh, wow, that was a great pick. And so it's like they really start out really bad and then just come on and later in the draft. And so I'm Mike Mayock, the GM. You know, you were saying more of Gruden as the picker, which, I mean, Gruden is definitely one of the guys picking, but, you know, it comes from a GM standpoint on Mike Mayock. When he started in 2019, he really hasn't made just great picks. You talked about Clelin Ferrell. You talked about Jonathan Abram. I mean, a lot of these guys just have really underachieved for where they were picked. And this is almost like a Denver year. I think it's a make or break year as well. And you were talking about John Gruden potentially being on the hot seat after this season. He's made improvements to this Raiders team, but I think if you get paid $100 million over 10 years, like, you should be bringing this team to the playoffs every single year, and they just haven't. So I think John Gruden is on the hot seat now. I don't know if they have to really be really bad for him to get fired just because of how much they're paying him. I think he survives the season, but I really don't think they're going to be, at 9-8, or what did you have them at? 10-7, 9-8. I don't think they're going to be that. I think they're going to be under 500, honestly. I really don't have a lot of faith in him. Derek Carr, to me, he's a quarterback, but you mentioned it, he and Gruden butt heads so much. And Gruden's going to have to get somebody like a Joe Burrow back there who just, analytically so smart and just can understand what he's talking about and not, Derek Carr just to me doesn't seem like, not that he's not a smart quarterback, but to be on John Gruden's level, you got to be one of a kind and you got to be, just so entrenched with the playbook. And I don't think Derek Carr is that guy. He has good stats, but he just isn't jumping off the chart to me. So I don't know if they may move on from Derek Carr after this year. They've had chances in the past and they haven't done it yet. So maybe, they're still believing in them, but this could be a make or break year. You talked about Josh Jacobs being elite. And the one thing that I think you're missing on this, and it's really, I feel like I'm missing on it as well. And a lot of people are starting to bring it up. Las Vegas brought in Kenyon Drake this past year. And a lot of people are talking about Kenyon Drake, potentially being the starter or at least splitting carries with Josh Jacobs and, having some wide receiver dump offs in the backfield. I had Josh Jacobs in my fantasy team last year, so I watched Josh Jacobs a little bit more, and I was impressed with them. But they bring in a guy like Kenyon Drake, and you bring in a guy like Kenyon Drake, you're going to come into play. You're not coming in to be a second stringer. And so I'm interested to see what happens here. And then you look at the wide receiver standpoint. I mean, Henry Ruggs, the reason why they drafted him is because he ran a 4.27 40. That's really, I feel like, the only reason they drafted him. The best receiver on this Las Vegas Raiders team is a tight end, and that's Darren Waller. And that's the only person that I feel super confident about on this offense is Darren Waller. And he's gonna make his catches. He's gonna do his thing. But I'm really interested to see, how the rest of the team is. You bring in John Brown, who played well with the Bills. How does he, come in as a wide receiver? He's really probably like a wide receiver 3. Brian Edwards, Willie Snead, who I loved with the Saints, didn't really do much with the Ravens. Zay Jones, the guy at East Carolina, hadn't really done much. Everybody loved Hunter Renfrow, but Hunter Renfrow really hadn't done much either. Offensively, I'm just really not that impressed with them. And then you go in, like we talked about defensively, Clue and Farrell's got to have a big year. Quentin Jefferson has to have a big year. I think one of the really good picks that I think Las Vegas had last year was Trayvon Mooring from TCU. He was a second rounder. He was supposed to be a first rounder, kind of late first rounder, who I thought the Saints were going to pick. And, the Saints went way off the board with their pick. And so he fell into the second round, it was about the 10th or so pick in the second round. I think he's going to actually be a pretty good free safety starting for them this coming up year. Las Vegas is going to be an interesting team. The schedule doesn't favor them. If they had a Denver schedule, I would feel more confident about where your standpoint from a 10-7, 9-8 type, potentially slipping into the playoffs. But with the schedule they have and the teams they start out with, I mean, you kind of talked about, how the Dolphins are not going to be a high price, ticket. You shouldn't think you'd be a high price ticket, but the Dolphins are going to surprise a lot of people this year. Not that I think they're still a high price ticket, but they're still going to surprise a lot of people. You're going to get them with, like you said, the Ravens, the Steelers, the Dolphins. They just don't have a favorable schedule to me, and so I don't see them making the playoffs. I see them finishing third in this division. Unless Denver has a crazy year, I don't see them getting last in division. But 7-10, maybe sit there at 8-9. I think that's a good spot for them. But I don't think they improve. I don't think they did enough to improve during the offseason, especially with the draft picks. To me, it just doesn't seem like it's going to be their year. And this division is one of a kind. It's very unique. But I feel like Los Angeles is at that point where they're about to make a big jump.
I like all that you said. I like all that. It's like you're trying to get me to come off my me thinking with my heart, with my gut. Really, I say my gut more than my heart. It's just like I want to will them to a good season, because it's like every year I try to find, because every year we have some team that kind of surprises you and wins, and you just not sure who that may be. And I just feel like that that team. You have a team that's surprising you and win, and you have a team that you thought was going to be that team, and they just fall off. And I just feel like the Raiders are that team for me. Last season, I picked Miami as that team for me, and they almost got there. That was a game away. So I just feel like this year is going to be that team, and it's like I really laid out all the reasons why I shouldn't think that, but I'm still going against the grain and going to stick with the Raiders. Like you said, you laid out perfectly about all the mishaps they made, all the moves they made, and we're going to see if Josh Jacobs is going to be their elite running back for them, and to see if they can find a quarterback that John Gruden actually believes in, because for whatever reason, he just doesn't have a lot of faith in Derek Carr. But I think he should look in the mirror at himself and see what he's doing wrong with their organization as far as the defense. And you brought up a beautiful example talking about Mayock, him coming in as a GM, especially when him coming in as a GM, being a former commentator. He pretty much used to do what me and you doing right now. And he came from behind the booth to be a GM for an organization moving to Las Vegas. So like and he doesn't have a lot of experience in that realm to make that kind of leap and do that. So for him to do that, it's like, whew, that's a big jump. I mean, I'm not mad at him. I'm rooting for him because that's the same jump I want to make one day. So I'm trying to make that same jump from behind the booth into a GM spot. So I'm definitely rooting for him. So these teams can see that it works. So when it comes my time, they won't be hesitant about it.
Yeah.
So, exactly. So, but he just has to do better in the draft. Like you said, I can't just put it all on John when it comes to drafting, because it is a team effort, and Mike does make a lot of those decisions about who they draft. It's just some of those draft moves, especially like late in the draft, like you said, they made some pretty good draft picks. It's just the early picks in the early first rounds. It's like sometimes when I play Madden, and this is a horrible analogy, but when I play Madden, and sometimes I end up trading one of my better players for like a top pick, and my team is pretty good, so I don't really have a direct direction I want to go in, and I may need a particular position, but I don't need that position at that draft pick, if that makes sense. Like that draft pick for the position, the player I need, I can get him later down in the draft, but it's like nobody wants to trade with me, so I have to just go ahead and make that pick for that player. So you end up trading for a player that you could have got late in the draft because you have a high draft pick, but you just want to get the player that you want. So I definitely see how they can work out when they just want to get the guys they want. But like I said, a lot of times I heard people say they want culture guys that come from winning organizations, guys that can come in and help build a good winning organization. But to start there, you got to start winning, and that's finishing above 500. So, and I think this will be the season they do it. But I feel like them and the Chargers is going to be neck and neck. It can go either way. I'm not going to hedge my bet. I'm not going to jump off it. So I don't want y'all coming for me. I'm going to stand on what I stand on. But I just feel like it can literally go either way. I think the Broncos are out of it completely, but I feel like it can go either way with the Chargers and the Raiders, man. So I won't be surprised if the Chargers finish ahead of them with the roster they have, with the new coach they have, with the quarterback they have. They could easily finish above. But I just want to be a believer in John Gruden right now. So to the last team, no surprise here. As soon as we said we was doing the AFC West, I believe everybody in the world knew that the Chiefs was going to be number one. Some of the people that listen to me, they probably thought I was going to be wild and just throw the Chiefs number two just for the heck of it. I'm not that inside. I know sometimes I have hot takes, but I'm more reasonable with my takes. I'm not just going to say something random like the Chiefs won't finish with the best record in the AFC overall. And I haven't finished with the best record in the AFC overall. I have them going 13-4. I know some people got them probably finishing the higher than that, probably losing 1 or 2 games, and I'm not mad at that. I just feel like 13-4 is reasonable. Some of the games that I really kind of got them losing, and some people may be surprised at that. I got them when they go to Baltimore for week 2 at Baltimore. I got them losing that game. I got them losing the game against the Bills. I think the Bills got it on their mind to beat the Chiefs from the AFC Championship last year. So I feel like that can easily be a loss for them. And I got them losing against Green Bay. I feel like A-Rod is going to put on a show, going on his revenge tour on the whole NFL. And I feel like they may get that game. And Scott may leave this chat when I say this, but I got them losing to the Las Vegas Raiders at Vegas in week 10. They go to Vegas. I got them losing that game. So those are the main 4 games I got them losing. But outside of that, their schedule is not that hard. I mean, games that you could be on the fence about is the Cleveland Browns. They open up against the Cleveland Browns. That's one of the sexy picks that everybody got coming out the AFC as far as going to the Super Bowl over the Buffalo Bills and the Chiefs. They go to Tennessee on the road week 7. That can easily go either way. They play Dallas right before they bye in week 11. That can go either way with Dallas offense.
And I know the game and the matchup that everybody wants to see is Patrick Mahomes versus Justin Herbert. I know some of y'all seen that viral clip that went around when the guy at the golfing tournament, and I'm going to play the clip so y'all can hear it. And Patrick Mahomes kind of said it backwards, but pretty much what he was saying was, I believe it when I see it. But I'm going to play y'all the clip so y'all can hear it yourselves.
Watch out for Justin Herbert next year. I'll see it when I believe it. Yeah.
He said, "Look out for Justin Herbert."
That's just his feeling right now. Justin just got to show him before he just become a believer of him. And I can understand that Justin only proved 1 year. So Patrick, even though Patrick's, for him to talk like that, he does have a Super Bowl. He does have a Super Bowl MVP. He does have MVP. So I'm gonna play him his proper respect. But he's not no vet. He's not no 5 years in, 10 years in. He's only 3 or 4 years in. So he's not no deep in the game veteran player. But he does. He's well acclaimed. He has a lot of awards. I can understand why he has that feeling. But overall, the only issue that the only thing that was holding them back was the offensive line. And that's when they got to the Super Bowl. Up to the Super Bowl, they was having an awesome season. When they got to the Super Bowl, that's when the offensive line just went down the drain, and they just had a rough patch. But they was able to improve the offensive line by bringing a lot of good pieces. Hopefully, they can find their footing and find their gelling throughout the season. So when they get deep into the playoffs and deep into the season, they have that the continuity to play together. And they still are trying to figure each other out going into the playoffs when it's time to win the Super Bowl, because it's just going to be tough for them. Pro Football Focus has them ranked as the second best roster in the whole NFL. Overall, they do have a deep roster. Of course, they got Patrick. They got CEH, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They got Tyreek. They got Hartman, Travis Kelce, Demarcus Robinson. They got people everywhere. Majority of the players they got everywhere are speed guys. So they're trying to get the ball downfield. They're trying to move fast. If they still would have had Kareem Hunt, that would have made it 1,000 times worse on teams. So it's like they're one team that's just trying to move the ball, get the ball downfield, and put up points on you. And if the defense can hold up, that's going to be even better. The defense, they still have the same guys, but they also have, but they still got Honey Badger that's leading that defense as a captain. He's had some slippage as he gets older, but he's still a productive player. I was so glad that he was able to win a Super Bowl. I've been watching him since he probably just as well as Scott was watching him since he was at LSU, when he got suspended at LSU and he had to go through those trepidations and come back to be the player that he is today. So I'm just happy for him overall as a player. But yeah, he's 29 now. He's an older player. He's a vet. He had some small slippage. I mean, in NFL, 29 in the scheme of life is not old at all. I mean, 29, you really starting your life. But when it comes to football, 29 is a bit older because it's a young man's sport. And they still got him. They got Frank Clark, who's still there, and that's another player that's getting a bit older, but he's only 28. So these players are still young as far as life-wise. It's just football years. They're getting up there. But they still have Chris Jones, who's one of the better defensive tackles, and he's fairly young. He's only 27. So we're gonna see how they do on the defensive side. They just gotta hold teams. Their goal going into every game, hold teams below 21. If we can hold you below 21, I believe Patrick can handle everything else. If we start to get above 21, and 21 is a lot of points for people that think it's not. 21 is a lot of points in the NFL as far as scoring. If a team is scoring 21 points in your game, your defense is not good. So they just want to hold teams below 21, below 20, and let Patrick do the rest and see what that leads them. And you can answer this, Scott, when you talk, but some questions that people have going into the season, just kind of throw it out there. Of course, we got Patrick Mahomes as a top 2 quarterback in the NFL, top 3 at the least. Mm-hmm. Questions that you can answer is Travis Kelce. Is he the best tight end of all time at this moment? Tyreek Hill, is he a top 5 wide receiver at this time? Top 10? Is he up there? So I'm just gonna throw it to you guys and see what you think about the Chiefs. if they can make it back to the Super Bowl, if they can revenge their honor against the Bucks or whoever come out the NFC and get back to the Super Bowl and win another one with the roster they currently have.
Yeah, so I mean, I think you laid it out really well. The one thing that and you talked about it at the beginning was just this, and I've talked about it really with every team. It's something. It's just my initial take on people is what your schedule looks like, and the Chiefs don't have just an easy slouch of a schedule. They have the Browns, they have at the Ravens, and they go. They have the Bills, they have at Titans, and then you have the Packers. You got the Cowboys. The Steelers, and then the Bengals later in the year. I mean, you could, Joe Burrow's doing his thing there. I mean, I don't think it's just a slouch of a schedule. And then you not even mentioning, you talked about the Raiders potentially beating them. I don't necessarily disagree with it from the Raiders standpoint. I think it's a 7:20 game. And I think Patrick Mahomes usually plays well in prime time. If that was like a 12 o'clock game, I could see it happening. And that's why I think they're going to lose to a team like Tennessee, just a daytime game. Not all eyes on Mahomes. I mean, that'll be a regional game, but it's not going to be anything that's, nationally televised on a Thursday night football or, Monday or Sunday night or whatever. So they have a tough schedule. And one thing that you brought up was just the defensive standpoints of how they gave up, it was 22.6 points per game, which was tied for 22nd in the league. They were tied for 22nd in the league for points against and still went 14-2. Like, I mean, this is a team where you don't necessarily have to have the greatest of defense just because you have one of the best offenses. And it's just in a situation where if they make some, improvements on the defensive side, you're going to see this team be very, very good with still a tough schedule. Patrick Mahomes is, like we talked about, is going to do his thing. One of, if not the best quarterback in the league right now. I think he's the best quarterback currently in the league, just on how he's playing currently. I think this is going to be another big year for him. Clyde Edwards-Helaire started out the season really well, but then kind of fell off towards later in the year. I think he's going to have to really just play really good, because if you look behind him, I mean, you have a second stringer in Darrell Williams who's would come in and play really well, and then you got a guy like Jerick McKinnon who's a former starter in the league. So they have enough second and third string guys that can come in to the second and third string guys will come in to take Clyde's spot if needed. So I think he's kind of in a similar situation like Austin Eckler, where I think he's going to be subbed out an okay amount. He's still going to be the number one guy, but you're not going to see him catch that bulk load. And he's going to be fresh going into the playoffs. And I think he's going to play well. Tyreek Hill, top 5 wide receiver, no doubt about it. But it really kind of slips off there and after Tyreek Hill. And this is a kind of, you talked about it, about Travis Kelce potentially being the best tight end all time. I don't think he's there yet, but he's definitely in the mix in the future. And especially he's very close right now, but I think he's not there yet. Travis Kelce is your number 2 receiver at the tight end position. But then after that, you're looking at Mecole Hardman or Demarcus Robinson, who both have played well, but just haven't been just super exceptional. We'll look at Mecole Hardman had 41 receptions for 560 yards, and Demarcus Robinson had 45 receptions for 466 yards. Hardman had 4 touchdowns, and Robinson had 3. I mean, with Mahomes throwing, how many? He threw 38 touchdowns last year, which was somewhat of a down year for him. I mean, he's gonna throw touchdowns. He's gonna have a good amount. Tyreek Hill's going to be the guy. Travis Kelce is going to be the guy. They have 2 great pass catching receivers in a sense. But I'm really interested who's going to be that third guy who, takes away some coverage where if, you're 1 and 2, DBs and, safeties are covering Hill and covering Kelce. Can this number 3 guy be somebody that can break out and have, a couple big games throughout the year? You talk about the offensive line, they really improved some. You lost Eric Fisher, who was the reason why they were so bad in the Super Bowls, because he got hurt that game before. You bring in a guy, they have guys like Orlando Brown Jr. and Creed Humphrey who are going to, do well for him. And then you move on to the defensive side of things, who I think they, like we talked about, how much points they've given up. They really have to step up this year. Chris Jones has to step up. Frank Clark has to step up. Willie Gay has to step up. Tyrann Mathieu had a pretty good year, but he's like you talked about, he's getting old. He's 29. He's going to be all right. And somebody who I think who had a kind of a breakout year last year as a rookie, who's definitely I think going to have a more of a breakout year this past year, who I'm biased on just because we went to college together, was L'Jarius Sneed, Minden's own, Louisiana Tech's own. Had 3 picks last year, had 2 sacks in the regular season, had 2 more sacks in the playoffs. Who's on that other side in the cornerback position. I think L'Jarius is going to have a big year. Whenever they got, into big games, L'Jarius was covering, that number 1, that number 2 wide receiver. I mean, that's impressive for a 4th-round guy. And I think it's more impressive just from the standpoint that he was, went to college so close to here from Natchitoches and, went in Ruston and was born in Minden. And, I think it's kind of cool just because we were in college at the same time. But I think he's somebody that's going to have a big year on that Chiefs defense and somebody they need to step up from the standpoint of, we can't be giving up 22 points a game on average. Like, we need to have some DBs that are going to step up. And I think L'Jarius is going to be one of those guys. Look to see him improve on his 3 interceptions from last year. Kicking-wise and return-wise, I mean, you're going to have Harrison Butker, who's one of the best kickers in the league, and Miko Hardeman returning. I mean, that's very dangerous from that standpoint. It's going to be a great year, I think, another great year for Kansas City. I think it's tough for me because I think this could potentially be the year that the Buffalo Bills make the Super Bowl. I mean, we talked about, we haven't talked about it, but last year after they beat Buffalo, you saw Stephon Diggs watching the trophy ceremony. And I'm a big believer in you got to have that why, the why you're playing. And Stephon Diggs had such a great year last year, and I think he steps it up even more. Josh Allen, his quarterback, steps it up even more. They play during the regular season. Don't be surprised because it's a night game. It's not wintertime yet, so I don't think it's going to be that cold. But don't be surprised if Kansas City wins by a decent amount during the regular season. And then people come in to the playoffs thinking that Kansas City's, the odds-on favorite. They've probably, blown out some random teams in the playoffs and get to the AFC Championship, and you're playing Buffalo. And a lot of people are thinking that, this is the Chiefs. They're going to go three-peat into the Super Bowl as the AFC team. And don't be surprised if Buffalo beats them. I think this is going to be a big year for both of these teams. And Patrick Mahomes is not really slow. He's fast-paced going in and making himself, a top 10 quarterback of all time. He's obviously not there yet just because of how young he still is. But, if he gets there and he gets a chance to have another revenge game on Tom Brady, Tom Brady's another year older. This team could if you want to place a good, safe bet that can win you a little bit of money, I think the Chiefs is one of those teams that you can obviously just put some money on, and you have a good chance of winning the Super Bowl with them. I like Kansas City. I think they easily make the AFC Championship, depending if they avoid, Buffalo or Tennessee beforehand. But I think they should easily make the AFC Championship. Don't be surprised, like I said, if they get beat by Buffalo. You could even throw Tennessee in the mix just because of them bringing in Julio, and I think they're kind of at the turning point as well. But I think I like the Chiefs making to another Super Bowl, and honestly, I like them having a chance to win it as well.
Yeah, I can agree on a lot of things you said. It's mainly because I have them having the best record in the whole AFC, and I believe I may have them having the best record, tied for the best record in the whole NFL. So I definitely have them up, and I definitely have high hopes for them. So, like you said, the schedule is not a cakewalk. It's definitely not a cakewalk. You're gonna have to believe in them as the team that they are for them to beat most of the teams they're playing against, because they got, like I was saying earlier, they got Cleveland, Baltimore, Chargers, Philly, Buffalo, Washington, Tennessee, New York, Green Bay, Vegas, then the Dallas, and that's all just the first 11 weeks of the season. Mm-hmm. So all those, literally every single one of those teams were either a playoff team last year, finished the season above 500, or finished the season even with 500. None of those teams mentioned outside the New York Giants and the Philadelphia Eagles finished the season below 500, and that's just because they're both in the NFC least. So it's gonna be tough for them. And we all have high hopes of them just because of who they are. But it's definitely not gonna be an easy road to get back to another Super Bowl. But we definitely gonna see how they go. And I'm glad you brought up Steve from Tech. I that never crossed my mind that you went to school with him. Knowing that you went to Tech and knowing he's from Minden, I have a friend, I have a line brother, shout out to Zay. He's from Minden. He always used to shout out, man, Ladarius Steve, he's from Minden, yada, yada. And I used to be like, man, who is this guy? And he actually had a good season, like you said, to get 3 picks, to come in after a 4th-year rookie, to play the minutes he played. Only played 9 games too, though. So if he comes back and play all 18, well, if he played like 16 games, 15 games, if he, just more than 9, he can have a better season. And to go out there and not fold and do what he did for that defense last season is big. And they can expect big things from him going forward. So we're gonna definitely see how they do. Because overall, the Kansas City does do a good job at drafting players. Draft and development is one of their strong suits. They do a good job at drafting and developing players. So you got to give them credit for that. So, oh man, that was a lot. I mean,
I want to build on, like we talked about, and like I said, I'm such big on scheduling standpoint, but you talked about how strong their first part of their schedule is. And if they make it through, I wouldn't say it's a gauntlet, but I mean, you got a lot of solid teams in there. But if you get towards the end of the season, their last 8 games, 5 of them are against divisional opponents, which to a lot of people would kind of scare them away. But, you're going to play the Raiders twice, and you play the Broncos twice, and you play the Chargers once in there. It's like, they have a lot of primetime games this year, and I love Patrick Mahomes in a primetime game. I think they're going to be really good. But if they can make it through that first part of the schedule, high in the league, record-wise, they can go into that last part, kind of coast it a little bit, because they're going to play some – I mean, they'll go to Cowboys, which is, I think will be a decently tough game. But, I mean, you got a lot of divisional opponents who are going to – it's going to put you in a situation where you're going to have like a rival game where it's going to be rough. But I think I think Kansas City's far and above every team in this division.
The crazy thing about it, me and you spoke about the NFC South, right? And we was talking about how easy the Bucs schedule is, with them having like this, like we were joking about them, the scheduling gods kind of looking down on them by giving them the 29th toughest schedule in the whole NFL. And you turn around and go to the team opposite of them that they played in the Super Bowl, for them to have the top 10 toughest schedule in the NFL, it's kind of like what, like, I don't know what goes into scheduling, but it's like, what happened there for the Bucs to get such an easy schedule, but the Chiefs, the team they played in the Super Bowl, to come back the next season and have a top 10 toughest schedule. It's like, what went into that process? I'm not sure of the process of how they goes into making schedules, but I wonder what went into that process of how they have such opposite coins, sides of the coin when it comes to that schedule.
Yeah, and if Patrick Mahomes makes it out of this schedule and wins the Super Bowl, I mean, this guy's impressive. I mean, there's nothing more that you can really say about it. And he's going to put himself in a position to be mentioned as one of the greats going towards the future, especially if he keeps winning. I mean, that'd be 3 straight Super Bowl appearances for him. Winning 2 out of 3. I've always been a big Patrick Mahomes believer, especially since high school. Since college. I didn't really catch a lot of him in high school, even though he was from Texas, living only about 2 or 3 hours away from here. But he's going to be somebody that's going to be in this league for a long time and is going to be one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, definitely. And don't forget, he's a pre-snap penalty from going to the Super Bowl 3 years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. If his lineman didn't line, all he had to do was line up on his side. That ball was picked off by they picked that ball off from Brady, and that was going the opposite way. If that didn't happen, literally 3 straight Super Bowls in 3 years of starting.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah, very impressive. He's I mean, I don't really know that there's much more to say about him. I mean, he's definitely one of a kind, and he's definitely the future of the NFL. And you can see it why they have so many primetime games this year.
Yeah, that maybe we went into the schedule. They just want to get Patrick on TV with the best teams in the NFL and just say go at them.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go into our last segment. Of course, it's gonna be House of Hot Take. So DJ, drop that beat. All right, Scott, I got a couple scheduled about the AFC West for you, man. And these are kind of some serious and some just playful questions. So we're gonna see how you do with these questions. So you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, you did a really good job last time. So just gonna see how it goes from here. So this is the first question. Would you pay $400 to watch the Raiders play?
Who are they playing? I think that's the big thing. I mean, so to answer the question, would I pay $400? No, I wouldn't. I mean, now granted, if I was rich, it's probably a different question. But on the budget I'm on right now, $400 I ain't cutting it. I'd love to see the stadium, but $400. I mean, I got to see Patrick Mahomes going for 17-0. I mean, or Tom Brady's last game. Like, you got to throw in a little bit something for me. But for $400 just to watch the Raiders play the Dolphins, not for me.
Exactly. And just for everybody watching, that's how much they tickets going for. $400 a game. Sheesh. So, next question. Can the Chiefs go undefeated?
I think they can. Will they? No. I think they can. They're definitely good enough for it. But I don't think they will, just because of how tough their schedule is. They're going to have a slip up somewhere. I mean, you talked about it, just from them losing to a division opponent in the Raiders. I mean, I could see them slipping up against, the Chargers one time, or, they're going to slip up to somebody. You're not going to go. I mean, especially defensively. Now, if they come out and defensively they play really good, they got a chance. But especially with the added game, I mean, that's tough. I mean, 16-0 was tough enough. 17-0, especially when you get to the point where you get to the last 2 weeks, you're wanting to rest some players. I mean, I think they can, but I don't think they will.
Okay. Next question. Will Justin Herbert be a top 5 quarterback by the end of the season?
I wouldn't say top 5. Top 10, definitely, but I wouldn't say top 5. I mean, I'm trying to spitball here, but I mean, you're looking at Patrick Mahomes is definitely going to be right there. Let me look at some rankings real quick, just because.
Got Patrick.
That's a good. I mean, Aaron Rodgers,
Russell.
I think Russell Wilson definitely bounces back this year. I mean, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray. I mean, you could make a case for a lot of people. I think Justin Herbert has a very good year. Lamar Jackson. I mean, I'll tell you one person who I'm gonna have a sleeper on is Ryan Tannehill. But I don't think that Justin Herbert's in the top 5 conversation yet.
Okay. Next question: Should the Denver Broncos go full tank mode for a franchise quarterback?
I mean, I think they're in a position where they probably need to. I don't think the quarterback class this coming up here is, going to be unbelievable. I mean, like, I know Sam Howell's a top quarterback, as a top quarterback pick, but like, who else is, somebody that's going to be potentially in that spot? I mean, they're talking about this kid from Liberty, Malik Willis, is somebody that they're potentially talking about. I don't know how great he's going to be, but I mean, you're under Q3, so he could be good. Spencer Rattler. I mean, if you get a guy like Spencer Rattler's going to come in. He's going to be a lot different, but I think Spencer Rattler has to have a Heisman Trophy, national championship type season for them to be like, oh God, we need to have this guy. I mean, it's got to be a Joe Burrow-esque type season, but you're not going to see somebody. I mean, if they tanked for a quarterback, I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I don't think that they just I don't think the quarterback of the century is going to be coming up in this draft. Is what I'm trying to say.
You don't think it would be worth it with this draft class coming up?
I mean, I think
imagine taking for a season and the quarterback that you end up with would be the quarterback class from 2015 with James Winston and Marcus Mariota. I would be kind of upset.
Yeah, I mean, I think Denver's at a point where it's like, do we want to tank? Because we're not going to. I mean, they have the schedule to be good. I just don't think Denver's that good. So it's up to them if they're like, do we want to win games and pick ninth and draft a Patrick Surtain type player, or I don't know who's all even available coming up next year. Or they could tank and go for a quarterback. And so I think it'll be interesting. I personally think that Spencer Rattler will probably be the number one guy. So, and I like Spencer Rattler. So I think it's all on what they want to do. If they're okay being sub 500, but not necessarily, winning games and not necessarily being the number one team. But I think they're not wrong for wanting to tank just because I think they need that quarterback. But like I said before, I think this is a make or break year for Drew Lock, or a make or break year for Teddy Bridgewater, and really a make or break year for Vic Fangio as the head coach. So if they wanted to, they can go full rebuild, full tank, and go after a new head coach, a dynamic coach. And honestly, they could potentially go get Lincoln Riley from Oklahoma, draft Rattler at quarterback, and you're putting the quarterback and head coach back in just a different area.
Now that's a hot take. Hey, I like that.
Yeah, I don't think Lincoln Riley's going to be leaving anytime soon, especially because he didn't want to go to Dallas. And Denver just doesn't seem appealing to me as a coach. But you got John Elway there, GM, and maybe you just be loaded with quarterbacks, and maybe that's something that appeals to him. I don't know. It's certainly somewhat appealed to Aaron Rodgers. So if that happened, I wouldn't say I'd be shocked. I would be shocked, but I wouldn't say I'd be super stunned. I could see it happening, but if they wanted to go that route, if they knew that they had that in their back pocket, go full tank. I'd go full tank for that.
Okay, great. Last question. If Patrick Mahomes goes off to win a Super Bowl again this season, making him a two-time Super Bowl champion, a two-time Super Bowl MVP, and a one-time league MVP, would he already be a Hall of Fame player?
I don't know. I mean, I would say so, just from the standpoint that what he's done has already been really good. I think it'd be tough to put you in the Hall of Fame just only playing 4 seasons. But say he played, 6 more seasons after this and had a 10-year career, but did nothing else in the rest of his career. I mean, I'd put him in the Hall of Fame for it. And especially it depends on who he beats in this. If he makes the Super Bowl, and say he beats Tom Brady, say they have a rematch in the Super Bowl and he beats Tom Brady. I mean, that's a pretty impressive resume to me, just from the sheer fact that he went to 3 straight Super Bowls, won 2 of them. Should, like you talked about earlier, was an offsides penalty away from going to 4 straight Super Bowls. Has been a league MVP, been a Super Bowl MVP. I mean, he definitely has the resume for it. He wouldn't have, the total yardage and total touchdowns and all of that, but from a playoff standpoint, he definitely fits the bill.
Great. Put that beat. Man, that was great. That was another awesome episode, man. That's really towards the end of my NFL preview. So I'm gonna have to bring Scott back, y'all, for another episode throughout the season, just so we continue to talk. Not even just football, because I just want y'all to know even though he's been on 2 football episodes, he's well-rounded when it comes to sports, and he can talk basketball just as well and baseball. And you're an Astros fan, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Die-hard Astros fan.
There we go. And that might be why we get along so well, because I'm an Astros fan as well.
Can't hate on the Houston sports.
Oh, man, exactly. You know the lives I live. I'm gonna have to send you a picture of it was like a beat up picture of SpongeBob, Squidward, and Patrick, and they had all 3 Houston's main sports teams on their head. It was just like a joke because the Astros, the Rockets, and the Texans all played one day, and they all lost the same day. I'm not sure if you remember that day. It was like sometime last season or the season before quarantine. But yeah, man, it was just tough. But yeah, I'm a diehard Houston sports fan overall too, man.
I'll tell you this. Are you a UFC fan?
I'm getting into it. Not a big fan.
So this past weekend, Derek Lewis fought in Houston. Derek Lewis is a Houston UFC fighter, and he fought for the World Heavyweight Championship or UFC Heavyweight Championship in Houston. And his opponent was from France. And so, Houston just so diehard Houston. They're very loyal to this town and to the city. And the guy from France came out to tip it on full force with Paul Wall. And so everybody, they didn't show the fighter to begin with. And so everybody in the stands went nuts cheering for him. And then they showed the face, and it was the French UFC fighter. And so everybody started booing him, and he trolled them real good. But yeah, I'm a diehard. I love Houston sports. I'm a diehard Astros fan. I love the Rockets. I love the Texans. The Rockets and Texans are kind of in tough spots right now, but been a diehard Houston Astros fan my whole life. And ready to see them win the World Series this year.
Man, they're right there, and they are right there. They have an amazing season, and the Rockets are bad now, but I'm not sure if you got the chance to watch Jalen Green so far, but he's looking pretty good so far.
Yep, that was a heck of a pick by him.
Heck of a pick. He's looking really good. Well, that's going to be it for us. We might have to come back and make it just an all Houston episode one day, man.
I wouldn't mind that.
But anything else you want to say before we close out?
No, I think I'm just excited for the year. This is going to be an interesting year, just from the standpoint of 17 games. The AFC West is going to be an interesting division. That one I'm going to watch more personally now, just from the standpoint that we went over it. But I think there's a lot of interesting conversations that are going forward, especially with Denver, especially with Los Angeles and Las Vegas and City. There's a lot of conversations that I'm going to watch, especially in training camp. But this season, you're going to see an interesting AFC West team. And I'm interested to see how they compete and where they stand divisional wise, amongst the rest of the divisions.
You and me both, definitely. I'm definitely going to be watching out for them. And me picking the Raiders after saying everything bad about them, then turn around and saying they'll win 10 games. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be watching it, man. So thank you for joining me again. Thank y'all for listening again. If you're watching and listening on YouTube or listening on any streaming platform, make sure you like, follow, share, and subscribe, man. Like, follow, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment. Let us know how we're doing. We'd love to hear your feedback. And as always, thank y'all for listening. See you next time. Peace.